Mr. Bliss, how are you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
I know. We're on a lot of meetings together.
We definitely are.
Isn't that great?
You wouldn't believe. We're not aired, right? Yes, we are.
Everything I just said, I didn't mean.
Cut that part out.
We want to edit.
I did that before I said anything. All right. We're going to bring this evening's meeting to order. I'm going to ask fellow committee members to jump in where I'm lacking. All right. Just a full warning. I told Valerie I was spreading toothpaste on my hands, but I thought it was hand lotion before I came over here, so I still am without hand lotion, but I smell a little fresh. All right. Call to order. Introduction. Valerie, are you going to do the honors for introduce
new personnel?
Yes.
I would be happy to do the honors, but I also would like to share the honors with the incoming superintendent. I am extremely pleased to have John and Brian with us because I was a part of the interview team and I support both of them. And I think that they bring a tremendous amount of talent to both of their positions. But Mr. Bliss, I think that this is one of the honors that you should have as the incoming superintendent as far as introducing. I'm also a little on overload here. Introducing our two latest additions to the administrative team.
Sure, absolutely. First and foremost, I would like to introduce Mr. John Smith as the next headmaster of Dover-Sherborn Regional High School. Mr. Smith comes to us from Westboro High School, where he's the sitting principal. And Mr. Smith was selected from a candidate pool of greater than 43 applicants. We had a search committee of about 16 people, right, Mr. Smith? We were a little overwhelming walking into that session, but we thank you for taking an interest in Dover-Sherborn. We are pleased and privileged to welcome you as a member of our family here at Dover-Sherborn. It gives us great pleasure to introduce you this evening. You came from and were selected from a pool of very highly qualified candidates, and it was a number of characteristics that attracted us to you as our candidate of choice. You have a long-standing reputation and excellent long-standing history at Westboro High School of innovative program development, student success, and meeting the needs of all students in your school building. We thank you, we welcome you, and if you'd like to take a couple minutes.
Sure, I want to thank the school committee, superintendent, certainly Mr. Bliss, students. I had the pleasure of getting to know quite a few of the students in the several days that I was here. It's a complete honor for me to come to Dover-Sherborn Regional High School. These two communities are outstanding communities that clearly support education, support kids, care about faculty, and I think that this partnership is going to be an outstanding opportunity for me. I'm grateful that Ms. Lonergan has offered her time this summer to work with me in transitioning as well, so thank you. I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Rollins. I'm meeting with some of the parent groups next week and the week after, and I've had a chance to meet with some central office staff, and I am really excited to get going. I'm finishing up my duties and responsibilities at Westboro High School, but I can assure you that the DS on my clothing and my chest is ready to be worn at a moment's notice, and it truly is an honor, Mr. Bliss, so thank you.
No, thank you, and we've already brought Mr. Smith into the fold on email communications, and for the moment you can tell me to stop emailing you. In a couple of months, that won't be a luxury, I assure you. John, you have some pretty big shoes to fill. I'm told they're size 6.5. But we thank Denise as well, just publicly. She has been such a phenomenal ambassador and leader for Dover-Sherborn for several decades, and indeed she will be missed. This is such a wonderful transition, and we are quite sure that Denise will provide a great deal of support for you as you transition, as will the entire administrative family.
Great.
Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Welcome, Larry. We've met some school committee members. It was the end of a very long day, and we anticipated that we should ask him no questions and don't pressure the guy because he might go fleeing. But he came in, this is great, this is fine, I've had the best day. I don't think he said he had a buzz, but that's how I read his energy. So welcome, we're very excited to have you.
Thank you, it is an honor, and I am really excited to be here.
And I was really glad to hear that Ms. Lonergan will fill you in. She must have a lot in her head.
Long
Let's not
history,
write it down.
absolutely.
And a lot of file cabinets.
Welcome.
And this evening, we also welcome, although he began on Tuesday, April the 16th, he began his responsibilities as the assistant headmaster here at the middle school, Mr. Brian Merringer, who has been here now for a few weeks. I feel like you've been with us for months. It may feel like
Thanks.
years to you, Brian.
No, it's been a short time.
Oh, that's good. And I know, Mr. Kellett, did you want to introduce Mr. Merringer?
Sure. Mr. Merringer has joined us from Coakley Middle School in Norwood, and to say we are thrilled to have him is an understatement. He has hit the ground running, and he probably knows about over half, maybe closer to 3/4 of the students' names already. He walks around with the yearbook just to put a face with the name. He makes a point of stopping students he doesn't know and asking them their names and asking their interests. So we're thrilled to have him. And he's still putting up with me. He keeps coming back every day. So we haven't scared him off.
Brian, before you have the opportunity to speak, I do want to share with school committee, you know, it is a joy to be able to do references after the interview process has taken place. Brian, I talked to more people that said, we don't know what we're going to do. Is this a pretty sure thing for Dover-Sherborn? They spoke of your dedication to the students, to your coaching, to your work administratively. Literally, they could not say enough to support you as an individual and as an educator. And I just wanted to share that with school committee. It's rare you get everybody that has a little different variation, but so strong. Congratulations.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Scott and Valerie. But it's been a great 2 weeks. I am trying to learn as many names as possible. The staff has been outstanding. Scott's done a great job of kind of shepherding me around the building, and so it's. I think it's gone really well. And so I'm looking forward to kind of next few weeks just to learn those other students that I don't know and hopefully transition well, and then look forward to the summer next year. So I agree. Congratulations, Mr. Smith, and I share some of your enthusiasm for really getting into learning a little bit more about the school system. But so far, it's been a wonderful beginning, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So, Mr. Merringer, I haven't met you yet, so welcome, and on behalf of the school committee, unless you want to speak for yourselves, we're really happy to have you here as well. Okay, Mrs. Williamson, Ellen, I can't recall school committee times without Ellen Williamson being on it, either at the Sherborn local school committee or here at the region. And we count on her to work with the teachers in our collaborative bargaining process, because she's really good at it and she steps up even though it's endless hours, and we count on her to catch us when we forget a detail or haven't thought about something, whether it's a legality or a perspective we haven't seen. You're phenomenal. You're just a steady weight on the school committee. And Richard and I both brought cards, but I found a really funny one because it's got the crying babies on the front that say you're leaving. Wah! So anyway, we can't thank you enough. So we have a couple of things. We have the promise of a very short meeting because Ellen has to put flowers in water.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Dover-Sherborn schools and the regional school committee, we have your Dover-Sherborn lamp coming that has not yet arrived, and I think it comes to the house, or does the school drop
We'll
it
make
off?
sure it gets to the house.
And also, we're hoping that you'll have some drinks and appetizers on your fellow committee members on the Cape when your job is done and you're hitting summer mode.
Great, thank you so
So
much.
if any other committee members want to speak, we want to thank you so much, Ellen.
Well, it's been a pleasure, I have to say. I really have enjoyed it. I highly encourage parents out there to, take a stab at it. It's very, it's an opportunity to learn a lot about what's happening in education, where your kids are in school, and I've just enjoyed every last minute, so, thank you.
Every last one.
I was
That's so cool.
gonna question her that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellen.
I'm not good, I
Yes.
just can't let this moment pass. Alan, I'll tell you, it is a very special gift for a school committee member to be able to wear the pragmatic and the logical and the level hat of a school committee member, looking at the perspective and the issues that need to be looked at from that lens, and never slipping into the parental or here's what the majority are saying out on the soccer field or in the hockey, unless it's something that was so important that it was detrimental to the school district that I'm not in. So having been the superintendency for the last 5 years, I absolutely learned to depend upon you. I respect you. You brought integrity as a school committee member, but also as a parent. And I really appreciated your being able to differentiate and your hesitation to talk to me on a couple of occasions about parental issues that you were more than entitled to, but you were very guarded to make sure that the professionalism of school committee also did not get blurred between those two lines. And for that, I will be tremendously, tremendously grateful. And, well, you got a special place in my memory. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have public comments. Hearing none, we'll move on. Student council. Rihanna, how are you today?
I am very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. What would you like to share with us about the students?
So we have a few things going on lately and stuff that we've just completed. We had our March Madness Assembly, which was really April antics, a few weeks ago, so that was a big success. It really rallied the students together. I think they can speak to that as well. And we had dance team perform, we had some student council representative do some relay races. It was really fun to be able to get the whole school together. And then we also have our Teacher Appreciation Assembly as a work in progress, which will be at the end of May this year. I don't want to give too much away because we have some special surprises in store. But we are preparing for that, and it will be, or we are anticipating that it will be a big success. We did follow up with Ms. Lonergan also about the comments from the town meetings that we had. So we were able to give her feedback, and she was also able to tell us what can be done to improve the school as well. And we'll be sending out a list of things that we talked about to the student body so that they can be informed as well. And we will also be gearing up for the elections for next year for student council, so those will be coming up at the end of the year. If any of you guys want to run, tell your friends. So we have the officer elections for each grade and then the representative elections for the school. And lastly, there was also another committee that I took part in last week, or a few weeks ago maybe, for the cafeteria food and seeing how we can improve that. It seems as though the students are very frustrated with the limited options and the poor quality of the food in the cafeteria. I also think that the students can speak to that as well. And it seems that every single year at the town meetings, the #1 complaint is the food in the cafeteria is not good, it needs to be improved. And every single year we bring that up, and every single year nothing seems to happen. So that is a major frustrating point for the student body, and I can vouch for that as well, because it really, I don't think it is as good as it can be. And we are going to work as a committee to try to see if we can improve that in any way. But right now, I would say that that's also a big problem for the students here. And that is all I have to say.
Have you guys, regarding the food, had conversations about the federal regulations that
Yes.
you have? So you know
Yeah.
where those issues are?
And we also know that that is a difficult thing to deal with as well, but we also know that in schools like Weston, Framingham, other large neighboring towns, maybe a little bigger than us, but still, despite those numbers, they do have a very good quality of food. They have very many selections. They have a salad bar, a sandwich bar, pizza, soup, everything. They have many options that seem as though we can have those too. It shouldn't seem to be a problem. The quality is better at those other schools, and students the vibe that I got from students at the committee meeting was they would be willing to pay more if the food was better quality. And I think that's something that we really have to look at moving forward.
And Brianna, Miss Madden was with the committee?
Yes, she was.
And you'll be reconvening and working with her on an ongoing basis?
That is our hope, yes.
Because that was the update that she had provided me, was that she felt as though the meeting was very productive.
Yes.
And she felt as though there were improvements that could be made based on that meeting. I don't know what they were, but I do believe that it was between you and Mrs. Madden and,
Yes, there was a good number of students who showed up, which I was surprised at actually, which just goes to show how involved students are with wanting to make the cafeteria food better. There were about 10 parents there, maybe 20 students between high school and middle school, and I think that is some pretty large numbers for that meeting.
So the 16 school committee members, so from Dover and Sherborn local school committees in the region, we all recently had a meeting and this topic came up. So it is on our radar too, and we're all very concerned, as are you, about how to meet the federal guidelines and give you food that you're looking forward to eating, buying, and filling the stomachs before you head out to do the sports.
Awesome. Thank you.
The issue of quantity is also raised. Anything else? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have a Chinese delegation which we look forward to every year. And Ms. Business, would you like to do the honors to introduce?
Sure. As you know, we have an exchange, and we have our Chinese visitors came this year on time, and it's great. They're leaving already, unfortunately, at the end of May. And they will be presenting a little bit at the banquet, which is Thursday evening, and hopefully some of you can make it there. It's at 6:30 in Linquist Commons this year, celebrating our 11th year of the exchange. And this year we thought I want to introduce to you the teacher, Tang Pei, and she is an English teacher at Hangzhou High School.
Hi, everybody.
And she's going to do the honors of introducing the students and then sharing with you a little bit. We thought it would be interesting for you to see a little bit of a short
introduction to our school and something about the program.
Very wonderful.
All right.
Okay. And this is Cindy, and her Chinese name is He Xin. Hi. And this is Kay.
Hi,
Wu Meng
everyone.
Yue.
My name is Wu Meng Yue.
And that's Didi.
Hi.
Her Chinese name is Mao Xueyi. So I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak here, and since some of you may be not that familiar to our school, so I'm going to show you the video.
Charlotte was also, I think she was the first teacher when we arrived in China to be the host for Ms. Vizilus and myself. And she accompanied us to dinner, of which I sat and was absolutely amazed that there wasn't one thing I recognized that was brought to me, with the exception of a very large fish that arrived. And the fish kept staring at me, and I kept moving it away. And I was quickly told that the honored guest gets to have the fish look at you, because that was good fortune, and there was a lot of folklore that was attached to that. So, Charlotte, you ready?
Yeah. So let's enjoy the introduction to our school. Sorry.
So what grades are you all in?
We're juniors.
You're juniors?
Yes.
And how long are you here?
There might be a few
I think this is the second week.
We have been there here for April 26th.
For 1 month? Do you stay? Do you like it?
Yes, of course.
Is it freezing?
Is this your first
It's
time
freezing
here
outside.
in the United States?
It's the first time for the both of us.
This is
our
our
second
second
time
time.
to China. I have been to America.
Where did you go?
I have been to the Champaign, just near the Chicago.
Oh, yeah, University of Illinois. Yes?
Because my mom communicates with our school through IUC.
Great. And who are you staying with?
My mom.
No,
Host family?
Here, who's your host family?
It's okay. Sarah Williams.
Oh, with the Williams family.
Some was freezer. The Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
And I was already.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the biggest thing you didn't expect?
Are you ready?
Thank you very much, Laura. We appreciate jumping in and being a part.
But think about that question, because we'll ask it before we.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry that there's some problem with the speaker. So I'm going to introduce my school to you, briefly. Our school boasts a history of more than 110 years. It's one of the oldest schools in Hangzhou. And altogether we have 1,700 students and around 160 teachers. And we have 3 grades in our school: freshman, sophomore, and senior. And I'm really honored to be here, to have the chance to be on the exchange program and together with my students to visit your school, Dover-Sherborn. And thanks to the efforts Ms. Spriggs and Ms. Vizilis made, and they also paid a visit to China earlier this year, and the visit they paid and the effort they made are highly appreciated. And special thanks also goes to Mrs. Vizilis, who has done everything she can to make this program possible. And this program is not only a chance for the students and the teachers to come here to experience a totally different lifestyle, but also it offers a platform for us to know different culture and different things going on in a different country, I think, which is really good to us. And that's one of the reasons why we have also offered different courses, different lessons to the students who come to our school. And we offer them Chinese class, Chinese culture class, sometimes calligraphy class, and also those hand-on classes. They can also make their own things. I think the students who came last year, Patty, Brandon, Michael, and Diana, and also Mrs. Moy, I think they had fun there. Yeah, and once again, I want to express my appreciation to Mrs. Spriggs and Mrs. Vizilis and all people involved in this exchange program. And I'm really glad that this program can last and can continue. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Charlotte, we also might want to add that the meeting that Mrs. Vizilis and I had with your principal was very helpful in that it's the first time we actually sat at a table and we discussed concerns on the part of the Chinese and concerns that we had. And I really was a little bit nervous about trying to go ahead and work through that type of a conversation using an interpreter. And they had one interpreter that was taking notes, they had one interpreter that was interpreting for the principal, they had another one that was interpreting for me at a huge conference table. And I have to say that I was so appreciative, Charlotte, because your principal really worked with us, and he had a very strong agenda. And on many of the issues that he brought to the table, he compromised his agenda so that the program would continue to grow and would be strong. And Ms. Vizilis and I also agreed that there were some things that we could do to help strengthen the program and to work with our sister schools so for the betterment of the academic achievement for all. So I think it was an extremely important meeting. I very much appreciate the change in his nonverbal behavior from the beginning of the meeting to once we had resolved all of our differences, and the warmth of which the meeting had ended, and his verbal commitment to another 10 years, which was not where he was going prior to that trip. So if you would again, please relate to him with my most sincere appreciation
Yes, I will.
as to the work that he did, and we do appreciate you all being here and being here at the time of year that you can get a real feel for the academics of Dover-Sherborn.
Thank you. I will. I will tell him that. Thank you.
So I was trying to eavesdrop as questions were being asked of the students, and Mr. Maringer, you asked them, what was the, why don't you ask?
Biggest surprise or something you didn't expect when you got here? Like something that you came to the United States and said, wow, I can't believe the United States, or something is like that.
But every host family, they have a lot of animals in their house. Yes, I'm really surprised. I'm very happy about it. And I'm surprised at how small but beautiful this town is. I really love it. Maybe about the school time there, because our school schedule is pretty different.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a son who's been studying in Italy, and I'm getting texts about what food he wants when he comes home. So what foods are you missing most?
I like the food here, I think.
But not the cafeteria food?
They're making their own lunches.
They're making their own lunches.
Just like the DS kids.
Fine, fair enough. We'd like to thank you. You usually are running off. Are you going?
We are. We're going to dinner.
Because you're looking
We're
so
going to try
picture.
Indian food tonight.
Oh, you're trying Indian food. So usually when the delegation comes, they have plans to be whisked away on a bus, a plane, a train. So you're going out for dinner. Enjoy yourselves. And thank you very much for coming in. I hope you have a fun time visiting Dover-Sherborn.
Thank you.
And again, we'll just remind everybody the banquet's Thursday night if we're able.
6:30.
Oh,
yeah.
Thursday. I'm telling you, we're going to help Valerie. Thank you.
I think we've got the whole Natick Mall here.
That's a good sign.
Thank you very much. All right, the high school report, Mrs. Lonigan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll touch on just a few of the things in the report. It's rather a thick report this month and will be next month as well. But I'd like to begin with just talking about the lockdown drill that was held on April 8th, and this was the first time, as you know, that students were involved, and it went very smoothly. And, just some little things about some doors and some areas that is difficult to hear when the drill is over. So people in those areas, we had to be sure that we had, discovered what areas they were so we could let them out. But, all these things will be, they were minor things, they'll be addressed, but I have to commend our students. They were so cooperative, and I went around myself with the officers, and I was, looking in and trying to see, and I don't know where they all managed to disappear to, but they did an excellent job, so I want to thank the students and the faculty for their efforts. I also have some good news. A U.S. News and World Report had ranked Dover-Sherborn 4th in the state and 132nd in the nation, and of course we were behind 2 charter schools and Boston Latin, which, as you know, is an exam school. So I think that speaks very highly of our high school. And the criteria I included in your packet are the criteria for the rankings. And I will say that while I certainly don't live and die with the U.S. News and World Report ranking, I would rather be number 4 than number 400. So again, we were very pleased to hear that. I also want to congratulate our illustrious physics Olympics teams. This year, 2 teams were brought to the competition that was held at BC High School, and both teams won. We came in 1st and 2nd place. I do point out, though, that there is an error, a grammatical error, and I don't know, I think something was cut and pasted, and I didn't do a final reread, but Physics Olympics that was held, not were held. So the grammatical error, I do want to point that out to you.
Well, let's just find out. Ellen, did you pick that up?
I did.
But I picked it up, too, after it went to print.
No, but I'm still scratching that.
But at any rate, the competition was made up of 7 events, and some were make-aheads, and there were some surprises. And so, you know, clearly our students can think on their feet, and I congratulate them and Mr. Bridger. So the teams won nearly every event at the competition. I don't think it made us too popular, but nonetheless, it made us victorious. And we've won the Olympics 15 times in the 22 years that we have been competing. So I think that's noteworthy. And there were a couple of times when we didn't win that. Yeah. So congratulations to our students and their teacher. I also want to mention that interim reports, the grades closed for interim reports last Friday, and they should be available via the portal sometime this week. And as you know, we are in AP exams right now, and next week, Monday and Tuesday, we will be doing the Math MCAS for grade 10 students. And grade 9 students will be taking the Science MCAS on June 4th and 5th, of course, the week of graduation. It always seems to fall the week of graduation. On Sunday evening, I attended a drama banquet at which Judy Cranshaw was recognized, and Ricky and Gino Lombardo were brought back to sing Judy's praises, and our students were recognized for their performances and their talents, and it was a lovely evening. Coming up, we have the prom on May 17th at the Royal Sonesta. You have an updated end-of-year calendar of events with all of the information in there now, including the baccalaureate. And on 5/23, we have our senior project presentations, our art exhibit, and our spring concert. And I want to mention that Robert Brown, one of our students, won the UMass Lowell Youth Composition Festival with his original composition, March on the Underground City. So if you come to our concert, you will hear that. It's going to premiere. We were going to have it premiere at our concert. Our band is actually going to be playing it. So congratulations to Robert. I think that's amazing. On May 29th, you're invited to Underclass Awards. We have our Underclass Awards ceremony at 7 p.m. And again, on 6/3, we have the boat cruise. 6/4 is baccalaureate, which will be at the Pilgrim Church. 6/5, senior awards. And 6/6, graduation. If you have any other questions about anything in the report, I'll be happy to see if I can answer your questions.
So in the packet, we have the updated?
You do.
So, and it's not just calendar, were you referring
It's
to?
a calendar of
senior
events because there are a couple of things that we didn't have the information when we went to print last month. So you have the update right now.
Okay. Any questions from Mrs. Lonigan on her report?
You also have the final exam schedule in the packet, just, you know, for your information and reference as well.
Do you want to, oh, it's Mr. Rollins introducing. So welcome, students. Mr. Rollins, did you want to introduce the presentation?
Yeah.
Take it away. Yeah. This is the indoor track proposal.
This is the indoor track proposal.
I'm going to jump in before he starts to tell fellow school committee members, this has been really long in the process, really, really long. We're getting it in the 11th hour, so it is an action required. And I already forewarned Mrs. Spriggs that we'll probably hear some voices commenting on that it's an action required and we're getting it just now. So I'm going to ask you to please, 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 to honor the students who have put so much time into this, to try and put that aside and really get to work tonight and see if we can come to some decision tonight around the indoor track. All right, thanks.
Great. Well, as you mentioned, the first part, I want to introduce some of the people who have been working on this. 2 of them for a year and a half here, and Lee and Chandler have been spearheading this, and they're the ones who brought forward the proposal to athletic advisory and done background work. Also, I have Sarah Mastrobono, Greg Lytle, Sarah Stevens, Trevor Crispolani, and Tamara Barsamia. Did I miss anybody? Who are helping kind of move this forward as Chandler and Lee are working on this, knowing that next year they will not be here as graduating seniors. So I want to recognize all of them first. Background on this, on March 13th Athletic Advisory Committee, we heard a proposal from Chandler and Lee to add indoor track as an option for our winter sports. We've followed the steps outlined in our handbook, and those require the proposals to touch on several areas, including the interest and abilities of our student athletes, abilities to find a coach, appropriate facilities, cost and funding options, availability to find opponents, balance of programs, and negative effects on other programs, and sustainability. And that's what this presentation is really highlighting, those areas. After Chandler and Lee's proposal on March 13th, we did vote 7-4 in favor of bringing it to the school committee. The proposal would be to add it for next season, which would require us to sign up with the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association before the end of the school year, and we do have to let the league know that we plan on running the team, which would require an adjustment in the schedule. So that needs to be done by the end of the school year, the sooner the better. First part of this, and I've asked us that I was going to run through these topics that were in your handout, and that I've asked the students to chime in with the information as they feel comfortable. So, the first part would be interest in ability of our student athletes. I think there is no doubt from anything we've heard that we do have the numbers and support of our student athletes to sustain the program, to start it up, and for the foreseeable future. We have had a huge increase in our student athletes participating on our track team in the spring, and the official number, which is the first meet, is 176, but that has grown a little more throughout the season as we progressed into the second meet, the students that were eligible to participate.
Keith, I'm sorry, could you just 176 student athletes in
on our
the
spring track.
And that's male and co-ed.
That's co-ed. Chandler and Lee started last year with a Facebook group, online petition to try to gauge the numbers and interest in how many would be, and we're continuing a little recently, and maybe if anybody has any information they want to share on that.
Yeah, so this is last year, but when Chandler and I went around with a sheet of paper and asked students if they would be interested in joining indoor track, and we got 101 students who showed interest, and we made sure that they were seriously considering it, but it wasn't a commitment. We got 71 who signed the petition, and 54 also joined the Facebook group. And because the 8th graders would have been part of it too, we had 8th graders sign it, and we had 22 of those. So it's a lot of people showing interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then these guys brought a petition out for this year, and they got 30 additional signatures. I don't know if some of those overlapped.
But they didn't go into middle school.
Yeah, that didn't include middle school students.
So I think with the student interest, everybody feels comfortable that there's interest there to add the team. Into the next about the impact on other teams, if they're adding a team, would be negative effects on other teams. Quite a bit of discussion. We offer a large number of teams for winter sports, and that's the boys and girls basketball, boys and girls ice hockey, boys and girls alpine skiing, boys and girls Nordic skiing, boys and girls swimming, and gymnastics. We've had 248 athletes participating in our winter teams last winter. Some of our programs in the winter have struggled to maintain numbers. We've gone through situations where the numbers have dropped, where we had to look at other options to maintain a team. Some of them very public, others now where we've had to do a lot of work. I think the discussion, do a lot of work to keep the numbers up to support those programs. And there is that issue, and I know some of our coaches work very hard to maintain the support on the program. The effect of adding another team to that mix does cause some concern around the athletic offerings that we do. and added to the drop in enrollment that we know is coming down the road. There was a lot of discussion about that, and there's nothing that we can say for sure would happen. So it is feasible that it would have a negative effect on some of the other programs.
Yeah, so when we did the petition, we also had them write down if they like currently did a winter sport, and most of them didn't. Of the 101, 54 didn't do a winter sport, 14 did do a winter sport, and 33 were unknown.
But among the 14 that did a winter sport, they were split up among 4 different teams. So, I mean, there were like 5 from Nordic skiing, like 2 from swimming. So it wasn't.
And I feel like there's always going to be like some people, like you can't have nobody join from other teams, but most people just aren't doing anything during the winter, and I think it's a good thing that they would have something to do during the winter.
And onto our facility,
I'm sorry, I just wanted the number of students that were not involved in the winter sports. You had 54.
But 33, Valerie, were unknown, meaning they just didn't fill something in.
Bigger.
So they may or may not have.
Thank you.
Why don't we hold the question? Yeah, I'm writing some down myself.
Okay. And the indoor track facility, obviously on our campus, our indoor facility, we do not have, not that every school that has indoor track has an indoor facility, but it would be an ideal situation around a first class program to have a place to run indoors. The team would practice outdoors. There was comments about daylight in the winter and weather concerns, and also we have a weight room facility, and getting into the gyms would be a possibility based on the schedules of our winter sports that use the gym, basketball, and it's a high demand area during that time. All the other equipment we basically own already. It's needed to run the sport. We have the equipment needed, so that wouldn't be a large output to get it going. And budget constraints. This proposal is based on we estimated the budget. Buses increased a little bit from last year's. We did have a little step up in costs with fuel surcharges. So $17,500. The proposal is that the team would fundraise 100% of that cost in the first year, 50% in their second year, and the third year the program would fall into our school budget. I was asked, we discussed at the meeting, at our athletic advisory committee meeting, if enrollment dropped from other teams, could we shift the funding over? It's really hard to put a finger on, but there has to be a significant loss of support of the team. It's really a stepped budget. If you're taking a bus, if you lose 5 people off that bus, that isn't going to get rid of it. So it would be a significant loss from a team before we saw a major budget swing. It would free up money, but that is a possibility that happens, that we could free up some money from other sports to spend, but again, it's not a defined number at this time. Scheduling considerations, there are 9 teams in the Tri-Valley League, so 9 out of 10 have indoor track. Scheduling, because we are a member of the Tri-Valley League, we would be able to join the team, and we would the league schedule. They already have the existing meets scheduled. And we would be placed within that existing schedule. And there's no doubt that we'd be able to find a highly qualified coach if the funds become available.
Okay, I open it up to school committee to ask questions and discuss. So the Tri-Valley, I'm sorry, I don't want to go first. I was just curious, when you said by the end of the school year, does it have to be now or could it be a June meeting?
Technically, it could be a June meeting, but the sooner the better. It is, as I explained to people, that the Tri-Valley League is not going to be thrilled about it. With 9 teams they can do, there's only 2 locations that can host meets. Some other schools have indoor tracks, but they cannot host a meet at. So they do have groups of 3 schools, and 2 of those schools show up at Holliston or Hopkinton on any given day to compete. And adding a 4th in will be difficult. So they know that we are looking into this possibility and would have to add us in. The sooner the better, because it does require, there'll be some planning involved of who we pair up Dover-Sherborn with to make it feasible with 4 teams at one meet. The meet's so long as it is, I guess 4 hours is not uncommon, so adding a 4th team will be some challenging to them, but they will accommodate us. So they just need time to work out with us.
I would say the timing is very sensitive in the fact that once they make that schedule, because I tried, it was last year, in calling MIAA to get a waiver on a decision that had previously been made. And the amount of work that they put into, once they have their schedules, their transportation, their locations, they were not willing to grant anything at all as far as the flexibility on that. What I understood, Keith, from the letter that I received, is I'd asked for it in writing, and I'm sorry I didn't bring it for you all tonight, but I understood that...
I have a copy.
You have a copy of it, Laura? That it was the season before, that the request had to be the season before. Is that...
The one from Mr.
Before the end
Kirby?
of spring.
Yeah.
The end of spring is when we're looking, so.
He doesn't actually put a date in. He just says, I'm sorry to inform you that it's too late at this point, and that was October 4th. We would be happy to include you in the future if you find there's enough interest in your student body. The TVL athletic directors will put this on a future agenda at Heath Rollins' request if Dover-Sherborn decides to host an indoor track team next winter. So no specific date is put in there, but we do know that as of October 4th, we were too late.
But I know in my conversation with him that there was a communication regarding that it had to be the season before the actual competition was to take place. So if that is...
The end of spring is...
The end of spring. I was just trying to get a time frame.
All right, so Dana, do you mind if we, since you sit on the athletic advisory, do you mind filling us in a little bit, your perspective or the athletic advisories?
I'd be happy to. I think that Heath gave a lot of the relevant data points. I think the key point that was discussed was about what do the students want, and we talked about the evolution of sports, because there was a great deal of concern about it might impact some sports, some might go away over time. We will have a drop in enrollment, but we recognize the fact that there had been an indoor track team from 1972 to 1980, with the last competition being in 1983. So this is not a new sport for Dover-Sherborn. It's a renewal of a sport for Dover-Sherborn, but it's part of, I think, the natural evolution where interests of students come and go, whether that's on a club or in drama or in a particular team. So that was recognized, and I think that there was a great deal of respect for what the students had done in trying to canvass the interests of their fellow classmates as to what sport they wanted to compete in. So that was, I think, very strongly heard from everybody. We talked some about the financial implications, because we all know that it has impact financially. And I think that, and maybe Heath or some of the students can talk to this concept of it would be funded in year 1 to prove the interest on a private basis, and then shared with the school committee in year 2 with the thought of it being folded in, obviously, once you've proven that this is really something that's taken off within the school. So I think that, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts that you can share about some of your funding ideas and how we could get to that amount of money. Because obviously that's something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, having just gone through the budget process.
Well, Chandler and I, when we originally thought it would be for like this year, came up with some ideas for fundraising,
such as like doing a fun run that people would pay to be part of, or having a clinic for the middle school students who are interested in track.
When Chandler and I were in 8th grade, there was a clinic, or just in middle school, there was a clinic that was on a Saturday, and you like learned about all the different events, and then there was a little track, like a little track meet at the end of it, and you got awards and stuff, and it was really fun, and you had to pay to be part of it. So I think that would be a good fundraiser.
Yeah, and then, I mean, these guys would have to be the ones actually raising the money, which they would do as soon as they were given the opportunity to do so if it got passed. So that's something that they've been also brainstorming themselves.
And it would be hard, but I think it would definitely be doable.
I'd like to add too that we know that parents help to drive some of these fundraisers for every sport, no matter what it is. And I think there's two things that we should consider. First of all, I don't think all 101 of the students that signed the petition would ultimately sign up for the sport. So let's make the assumption that only half of those people do. That's 50 people. One thing that we did with the freshman soccer team is that we asked every family that had a freshman coming in when we had a freshman soccer team to pay an extra $100 on top of the $275. Not one family had an issue with that, even if their child was playing at the varsity level. So if we did that for the track team and all 50 people paid an extra $100, that's $5,000 right there out of the $17,500. Secondly, Boosters has, and Frank Perlmutter made the comment in the Athletic Advisory Committee meeting, and both Heath and Dana can support this, that Boosters is completely supportive of this new sport. They would consider a loan. It is something that they considered doing with the proposed swim team a couple years back. The swim team did not ultimately need that loan, but as long as the group filled out the appropriate paperwork, they would be very open to that. So if you think about it, that right there is $10,000 if there are 50 students. If there's 100 students, the money is already taken care of with the extra $100. In addition to that, some of these ideas that the girls have been sort of tossing around, but I don't think it was, with the amount of time that they've put into this, to then go into sort of figuring out what the fundraisers are before it's been approved, was not the best way to spend their time with everything they've done.
So I think, right, the key is that they definitely had thought through it, which was good. It wasn't just throwing it against. And so I think the big positives, just to wrap it up, was that there was student interest, and if I can quote Coach Sears, since he's sitting in the back, is that kids should follow their passion, and it's good when they have passion. So I think that this was an example of that.
That's accurate.
Is that accurate?
I believe that's accurate.
That it's an opportunity for all grades and is very accessible as a sport without a lot of capital required by either the school or the students. And it's accessible really to all levels of athlete. We talked about some of the negatives of declining enrollment, the impact on other sports, the facility concerns, and budget, and then some of the other things that you came up with. But in the end, the balance was that we had voted 7-4 to approve it to come to school committee. So in my mind, that was a vote of support that it should be brought here with a positive look to it.
Thank you. All right, committee members. Yes, Richard.
You have in your budget here for 2 assistant coaches. Is that typical for this size?
Yes, especially where running events are going to be different distances, throwing events, the supervision is going to be in different areas.
So this isn't just, and forgive me if I don't understand the terminology, this isn't just track, this is also field?
Yes, track and field.
Okay. Are the meet events co-ed, or are they?
Correct. Yeah, they are co-ed, just like our spring track.
And the budget here, which looks pretty conservative, is 50 athletes. You have down here for $275 for paying a sports fee. Are these 50 new athletes likely to be hitting their cap? So in fact,
it could be. I mean, I can't. And how many would be waived? Typically, we, at the end of the year, we're under 10% that hit the family cap and waived.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay, I have my own ignorance, just point of clarification here, or maybe the girls like. an impression that this was indoor track. I didn't realize it was indoor track and field. So that changes a little bit of some of the conversations that I had with you all about a year ago. When you're talking about track and field, I have this vision of shot putting.
They're different events in the spring. You don't throw the javelin. There's high jump,
high jump. There's only
shot jump, high jump, shot put.
Just high jump and shot put.
No javelin.
No javelin, you know.
No discus.
No, not the space indoors for.
I just had to get clarification because all sorts of images.
No.
So,
Michael.
Which are the winter sports right now that are struggling to maintain an adequate level of interest?
Well, I hate to put any fear in people listening, but I would say, you know, we did go through the swim when we dropped down to 12 swimmers, and this year we've been able to stir up 30 plus. Well, when our we picked up. We have struggled maintaining 3 levels of girls basketball. There's only 1 year in the past 8 that we've been able to fill the 3rd level. Girls hockey is currently struggling with members to support the program, and is in a bad situation right now that we're working to find solutions for.
Well, I guess for me, the question would be, you know, at what point do we make a decision if a sport is struggling that it's time to not support it any longer?
With or without indoor track,
This is separate.
based on the enrollment, we have been able to fulfill our rosters and have a lot of success doing that over the last few years. We've had some successful programs. A lot of that is based on we have been able to fill our programs, have full JV teams, full varsity teams that can compete, learn from each other, and grow as we'd like to see. As enrollment drops, we will struggle with those questions. Of how to do. The process is laid out in the handbook, very similar to this process of adding a team as we are looking at removing a team, the same basic criteria, and it gets reviewed through athletic advisor when it comes to the school committee. We've had past experience with it, and it is a very difficult decision. Even not running a freshman team causes a stir, even when we that in some situations it was clear that we could not, and obvious. It's very hard to take something away.
So some of the ideas that I'm floating around is, so this would be a non-cut sport, non-cut, how do you refer to it? Non-cut?
Yeah, I've never seen limits on an indoor track.
Do I have the terminology correct?
The non-cut sport.
Non-cut sport. So, I know that a lot of students will try a skiing program because they're trying to stay fit in the winter when there isn't track. So I know that there are students who are willing to try those sports. So there may be some loss there. So I'm concerned about pulling from other sports, and I'm holding that with, well, if the interest isn't in the other sports, maybe it is time to add the new sport. So I am holding that, but there seems to be some unknowns here in that respect. Out of 100 people, we don't know about 33. So I'm trying to hold that because I'm cautious about adding a new sport if swimming is just in its second year of getting out of the water, no pun intended. Third. So that's what I'm struggling with that in terms of that. The cost, I think if the commitment is there, I think that's wonderful that they're willing to sort of take it 100%, 50%, and then pass it back to the school committee. It's really hard to take it, I just have to say personally, it's really hard to take us out of budget season because our budgets are so fine-tuned that it's hard. It's not just this year. It's not the fact that you're covering it. It's to add this to a budget just like that is something we usually don't do so quickly. So I was asking the school committee members to wrap their heads around it, and I'm sitting with the same struggle. So I don't know where other members are at.
If we might just, Chris had reminded me also that there's a piece of information you should have as far as the student activity team, so.
Yeah, with the projected decline in enrollment, if it were to continue over the next few years, you'll see a drop, this is an estimate in revenue in athletic fees, just on the enrollment decline of about $90,000.
But wait a minute, the bubble doesn't go through the high school for another 3 years.
Right, but I'm just saying, when you make in 3 years, 4 years from now, you're gonna be sitting in a position where we're either gonna have to raise assessments to pay for the sports, raise fees. I'm just trying to make everybody.
I think just the numbers of class though, through 7th grade, we're still at over 170 kids in a class. 190, I think, in the 7th grade class. So I think we have, I'm not arguing that at some point that will come home to roost, but it's not in the next few years, I don't think. Sorry, I'm not arguing with that's all. Sorry. Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
I mean, the interesting piece is the first year there is no impact to the budget because they're looking to fundraise. So I don't know. We don't usually just add a sport and see how it goes. We're usually looking for longevity. But there is, I'd say again, given the effort they put into it, it's not hurting the school system to try it for a year and assess fallout. Yes, Michael?
So I was under the impression when we touched upon something similar to this when we were going over expert compensatory requests, that we were going to initiate an overview of what activities students are engaged in at this time and the costs associated with each of those activities to see if there's an overall rationalization that is needed or we're actually in the right place. So to me it feels like if this is a $0 thing and there's a commitment, we should move forward right now with the caveat that we really need to complete that to get a bigger picture about all of this.
I view it a little bit differently because I think you're making a commitment already to athletics. I think that it's a question of which sport, not a question of whether or not we believe that there should be an athletic program at DS. So I think it is a little bit different. I think when we were talking about the stipends, we were talking about which activities, I think that that's a fundamentally different thing. I also think that the fact that we're going to have a declining school population some number of years off doesn't address the needs of the kids who are going to school now. I mean, I think we have to look at what's before our eyeballs, and what's before our eyeballs are a large group of kids who want to do this, who have tried to figure out a way to do it, and we do support athletics. To me, it seems like it makes sense.
Richard?
There is an impact on the budget in the first year. We make a profit.
I was just going to say the same thing.
In the second year,
and the
according to this
profit
plan,
could
we make a profit.
Pretty nice.
I don't get it. If my fellow school committee members think that's okay, I'll back out because my understanding of fees is perhaps entirely different. But
you don't get what?
I don't get why anyone should be paying a fee to the school for a sport that isn't costing the school a dime to support. In the future it will, and in the future I'd love to see the fee cover the entire thing or fundraising cover the entire thing. That would make them unique except for summertime, cross-country, in the springtime, cross-country. But I'm perfectly comfortable having a large group of students say, let's do this, and it's not going to cost you anything. All we need is a sponsorship. I think that's great. And I would like to look for ways to make sure that that continues to be the case, and continues largely to be the case, if that interest remains there. I think it's a win, and it's a win without us getting fees, and frankly, I don't think we should be charging.
Ellen?
A couple things, and so these are not necessarily about track, but they're about sort of the approach that we've taken to athletics. And one thing is we have charged other groups who have privately fundraised soccer, JV hockey. We have charged them the athletic fee, so it seems to me it would be really difficult to change that that procedure. And we had JV hockey parents come to school committee and argue that point with us, and we said, sorry, that's the way it is. So to change it now, I think would be not fair to previous participants of these sort of privately funded athletics. So maybe it's time for us to sort of look at our athletic handbook and maybe look at some of the procedures that we have in place for adding, deleting, and I don't know, whatever else, and establish new policies. But I think that the way to do it would be to establish them through a process rather than making a decision tied into a program, hearing that people again are saying, I don't agree with that, it's not a fair approach. The other thing is, I think also perhaps in our athletic handbook, I think we need to have some sort of process again for sort of, once we establish new things like the swimming team, having almost like a teacher, when we hire a teacher, they get sort of a 3-year opportunity for us to look at them, and we decided we wanted to get married. Maybe we should be looking at these programs after they've been running for 3 years and figure out, is the enrollment there? Do we see that? Is it still being supported? This kind of thing, and maybe have a grace period of bringing these things on, but sort of not being locked into them if we're not finding that it's not working as we sort of were told and expected. And I understand that numbers can decrease, and you can try to find ways to supplement that. But I think we just need to be real careful. And my guess is that isn't the case with this. So again, I'm not speaking to this directly, but whatever decisions we make, if we put caveats on them, we live with them then in the future. So I just think we have to, sort of be faithful to what we've done in the past until we make a decision that we want to change our sort of policy and establish that and publish it so people know. And then, assess the decisions that we've made and see if they're still behaving in the way we predicted.
If I can add, one of the tough things when you're adding a varsity team, to say a commitment really to 3 years is a short, as far as league setting up everything to get it running, to say it's only 3 years. There was a rule at the school at one point that everybody had to be a club for 3 years, which was a very difficult proposition for indoor track to get going, because you would not be eligible for competitions. Basically, they could run, and none of our coaching staff could have any contact with them if they were a club. So it was not a good situation. There was, I think, girls hockey went through it where it had to be a club for 3 years to show they were sustainable. And really, by the time we had the varsity team, we want that sustainability. To say we're going to let them be a varsity team for 3 years and pull out is is putting us in a tough situation for the future. With the league, giving non-league games. We're looking at stability. We do have quite a bit of fluctuation. Success follows success usually in our programs, where either soccer is hot and some of the other, maybe field hockey and football, the enrollment drops down. It ebbs and flows every which way, every which year. It wasn't too long ago when we had 77 kids try out for baseball. They're on the downside of it this year. And really, I think as you look at it, programmatic, look at it, you want to be able to sustain those ebbs and flows.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
To the point of fees, we know we're going to, there's 14 who, if they choose to do this, will not be paying the other sport. So we can't really go by that we're generating X number of revenue because there are a lot of unknowns. So we may just trade. And also the fees don't go to a sport. It's a way for the schools to generate some revenue to help the taxpayers. So it doesn't go to a sport, it goes to the schools, which people may not agree with, but it's a way for us to help the taxpayers who don't have children in the schools. And we set it up that way because it was our kids doing the sports, and so we started charging fees. I think if I didn't know the history with Chandler and Lee working so hard to get to the point where it's in front of us, I think I'd be really confused and not be in a position to vote on this tonight. So I'm really holding two students who I don't think we did right by in terms of process. And I'm struggling with, is that enough to make a financial decision, a 3-year plus decision? I'm really in a quandary.
I completely hear you. On the other hand, I'm not sure what another 6 months or a year of data would get us anything different than what we have, which is 176 kids out competing in the spring track. And that's definitely acknowledging their hard work, but I think what they've done is put a spotlight on what is of interest in the school right now. So I'm not sure if we were sitting here a year from now whether we'd be coming to any different conclusion than you would be. I think you'd just have another year of data and the sophomores would be juniors and we'd be having the exact same conversation. Mm-hmm. So while I understand that it might feel a little rushed, I've actually seen a lot more of the evolution, and I think it's taken, I think we have followed the procedure. Heath has followed the procedure that's in the athletic handbook, although a little bit more stretched out than some might like, but it's been, the process as defined has been followed, and it went to the committee and was given a positive vote. So I personally don't think I would have any more information in a year, so I can't, if anybody has any more questions, I'm sure they could be answered.
Okay, so I have one last question. This committee oversees all of the sports, right?
Which one?
The committee that voted 7-4. So they're well versed in the risks and the challenges and the budgeting issues for the next few years as it impacts their program and their support levels. So it seems like I don't feel like I would have more information or insight that they don't already possess around the details of their program to say that this is rash or we're charging them something. And certainly in the first year it appears to have little to no risk financially.
Are people ready to make, you want to say something before
No,
the
I just
motion?
want to know how to formulate it.
I have a couple of points that I'd like to make, and one of them is, as we continue to grow an academic program, and as we continue to listen to school committee concerns, one of the concerns that you have voiced to us is that although we have a healthy athletic program, perhaps we haven't balanced that out with humanities. Perhaps there are other areas that we're not tapping into. I think we have a limited number of students with which we are working with. When 80% are involved in athletics, I think that is to be celebrated. I think that is a wonderful percentage. So, saying that, I want to tie back into my first comment about academics. One of the things that we have encouraged, and he's really encouraged it, and I can think of town meetings where there was a teacher whose position was being eliminated, and students came forward, and the learning was absolutely monumental for those students. The swim team, students came forward. I think on this particular experience, the students came forward, and one of the things that I think needs to be noted is that they went through the athletic director, they went through the athletic department, they went through the headmaster, many visits with the headmaster, a couple of visits with the superintendent. We made the calls to MIAA. I think there were 2 or 3 calls that I had made trying to get to the right person, ask us for it in writing. We got that information. We had missed a deadline. There were alternatives that were looked at. This has not been just a fleeting idea. This has been a thought that has been well vetted. It, I think, has unfortunately not the most positive history. Quite frankly, the process is an embarrassment to me because I have time and time again encouraged students to do exactly what was done here, and it didn't work out. Not that the vote was yes or no, but that the kids were left in limbo. So the one thing that I would ask school committee is that some direction and some decisions be made, because I think it is terribly unfair for us to again send a message back to our students of wait, or that we need more time. They've really done their work, and I very much appreciate the work that's been done. I appreciate seeing some new faces at the table. But I think that they've also provided considerable data for their case.
May I put a motion on the table?
Yeah.
I move that we approve the proposal for indoor track and field as presented. Season 1 would be 100% privately fundraised. Season 2 would be 50% private and 50% school budget, and season 3 would be 100% funded by the school budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable committing to a 3rd year of full funding without knowing what that 3rd year is going to be.
Okay, would you like to make a...
Yeah, I would say I'd commit to seasons 1 and 2 as specified. I'm comfortable committing to season 3. So we're going to work and see whether in fact we should be in for the whole thing or whether it's not worth it.
Well, that's interesting in that we could not run a sport. Like, we are committed to our sports, but if the numbers aren't there or the budget gets cut, so we could cut any sport at any given time. So I don't know that we actually need an amendment. I'm comfortable just whatever.
I'm a little uncomfortable saying tonight and that 3rd year we'll pay for the whole thing for a new sport that we just don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a success. It sounds like it's going to be a success, but just not. I don't like to make a commitment that 2 years from now we're going to say it's not what we're going to do. But no, I think we ought to do it.
Well, to your point, sorry that we have to hash it out, but we get to meet once a month, and this is the only time we can hash. We can't hash out by email or phone. But to Richard's point, it may make sense to do an amendment for the first 2 years because that is a contract with the students. The 3rd year, there's no contract with anybody, so it may make sense to spell out the first 2 years because there's different funding sources. Michael?
I just feel like, again, we're treating one activity on the margin and we just don't have the whole picture. There may be other sports that are, or activities that cost us a lot more relative to activity fees and participation levels, etc. That would be where I would put my concerns. So to the extent that we've committed to any of these things or any length of time, again, we come year 3, hopefully we've done this type of review. We're directing our resources in places that appeals to the greatest number of students and has the greatest amount of academic and general impact on their well-being.
And not to be, to make it sound as the way I'm sure it's going to sound, but, we don't have to fund a sport, right? So when you're making your budget, if you feel like if you feel like you can't support it through the budget, you don't support it through the budget. So, and that's true of any sport, not just this. So any sport, all these line items, we get to make a choice. So if we were to approve this, and we find in season 3 that, we've got 2 kids running indoor field and track, and we just choose not to support that, you don't put it in the budget.
Do we even have a line item at that level? Isn't that?
Yeah, when he passes.
I think Heath does.
He
does, but we.
So it's gotta be his
Well,
decision.
we don't, right?
But it's his trade-off.
It's his trade-off.
That's right,
Right.
right.
I think
That's
Sorry, that's
right.
what I was just
That's right, so I mean,
Yeah.
right, we wouldn't necessarily say, okay, well, indoor track out, you know, ski jumping in, and, you know, we would say,
Wait, that's
we're
where we
supporting-
turn back to our athletic director
Right.
and our headmaster to help
Right.
manage the.
Right.
You usually give us an amount and then, but certainly any reduction would not just randomly be made. I mean, there would certainly be the data that would be looked at, the participation, all of the criteria that.
In the advisory committee took these things into account, I presume, in their deliberations, right?
but one thing I will say is advisory committee has nothing to do with budget. You know, they're
Right.
making these recommendations based solely on kind of these other criteria. So, you know, I do feel like there's legitimacy to the school committee being able to then say, okay, you know, I hear that there's interest and it meets all these criteria, but what about the funding of it? What about the budget? What about sustaining it through the budget? You know, I think that's a legitimate concern and conversation.
May I ask, Heath, is there any? Does it matter if we make a? Do we have to make a formal 3-year commitment, or can we make a formal 2-year commitment?
Well,
Is it-
technically, yeah, you can make a 1-year commitment and we're moving forward. You know, so I think that would be a unique case for, compared to our other teams where we're committing long term and we are committing some energy and resources to go in one direction. That we would expect, and I have no doubt about the
Right, so then the
It's good
issue
faith, you
is
don't start 1 year. Right.
sustainability of that program, but
I just want to make sure there
numbers-wise.
wasn't a specific.
Right.
So then it's a matter of whether it's in writing or in intent. And so I think what Richard's saying is in writing it should be 2, even though the intent, we have no intention to do anything other than.
I withdraw.
Okay.
So can I ask a question then?
Not yet.
If-
Not yet. You have to be recognized. Well, we discussed and then we'll look it up. Keith, I know in the past when we added freshman basketball, the DS basketball.
Yeah, freshman
the
soccer,
money.
freshman baseball.
So we don't have a club. I'm trying to think about swimmers. Do we have the?
No, it was a team-based.
It was a team-based. So
for
we've
one
always had a
season,
commitment.
4,000.
We can't have students sign a contract to the commitment. So what happens
The
if the fundraiser
commitment
doesn't?
for hockey, for swimming, it was backed by the Dover-Sherborn Booster Club. Are you talking
Backed by
financial?
it. So can we? Yes. So can we
Yes,
get
and
a
they are-
commitment?
Yes, yeah.
Well, they
have-
talked about it, but I mean, we can't have
Formally.
students just sign it. So I'm trying to remember a scenario where we didn't have
It was fine.
a team or a
It was
club.
formally backed by Dover-Sherborn Booster.
Okay,
in
so
that-
I would like-
in that situation.
Okay, so I would like to amend the motion to say subject to 100% funding by, so that the team wouldn't happen if the funding didn't come in.
Well, that's what the motion says, really. I mean, to be 100% privately funded is in the motion. I mean, it's fine if you want to amend it, but
Okay.
I think that's
That's
the
good.
understanding,
I
the
know
intent.
It's
And-
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right, are there any more questions on committee?
I guess I would say that there needs to be an understanding of when that money comes to the school and in what form, because, you know, we have to accept that as a gift, and I know that there have been years where it didn't come sort of in a timely manner. So I don't know that, you know, I don't know if somebody wants to put that into the motion, or we just, you know, get a commitment from both the athletic director and the prospective, or the advocates for the team, that, you know, we would like to see the money as of a certain point in time, and that it needs to come to us to be received as a gift.
Keith, when do you hire?
When do we hire? In this situation, it'd probably be early fall.
And is there any problem with having the money in hand before you hire?
It would go through the school budget.
It would be a problem,
Yeah, it would be.
because you can't make a commitment unless, this is no different than the other privately fundraised programs that we have. They come to us in September, you accept the donations. And Ellen is right, we did have a history where that wasn't done.
Mhm.
It is now very routine. He comes every September, I believe no later than October, with the donation for the,
So we just don't hire until the donation's in hand and then...
Yeah, it's been, we've had written, in the past, we've had written letters of commitment from the youth soccer, and then at the end of the season, we never had a, for the youth soccer situation, we put a dollar amount of not to exceed 6,000, and that varied, so we didn't have an exact dollar amount to the end of the season, and that's where we did it. In certain situations, it was easier to have the check in hand because we knew the exact dollar amount. So that's a difficulty that it won't be to the end of the season we have an exact dollar amount.
Does that work for you, Kristen?
yes.
Yes.
Grudging.
If we're over budget, I'll come to school committee.
You're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
We should do it.
Okay, so, I'll look up to any other questions, comments? Laura?
I just had the question that if you're agreeing to the first 2 years, what is the commitment to the kids beyond that? In other words, what do they need to demonstrate that this sport will continue on? Because if it's just 2 years and then we come back to you without any criteria, how do we know that 50 kids was enough to satisfy all of you? Or did it really need to be 75 or 100 or 1,000? Because I'd hate to see, this next group of kids that's going to take over. Chandler and Lee have worked for 2 years on this. If the next group takes over for 2 years and then it dies, because there's no criteria that you all are setting forth to say that in that third year, when the budget's going to pay for it, you could just decide you don't want it anymore.
Actually, because I think that brings up a really important point for us, which we haven't done, which I think has come up in this discussion, is what's the floor for any sport, and we haven't had that discussion, and that's we're suffering the consequences. Frankly, I don't think we really have an answer that is going to be worth very much at the moment. I think it's probably going to be a question of, is there still a lot of interest? The numbers still where we want them? Has the program had a really significant impact on other sports? Well, maybe it's a competition, and that's fine. That may be a factor that we would have to keep in mind. But I think I don't know what the right number is, but I think if the enthusiasm is still there, and it's still a pretty low-cost sport, which this one is. I can't imagine nixing it just because 50 has gone to 45 or 65 has dropped to 45.
Or because the school budget has to accommodate all the money. I guess that's what I'm most worried about.
Well, I think if
hold on, the motion hasn't changed.
No.
So the motion hasn't changed, so it's not saying 2 years, Laura.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't change the motion. So it's saying 3 years.
I think it's a fair and very perceptive comment on her part, and I think that's something that we owe to go through this process sometime, like 6 months. I mean, we just do an overall review of how are we engaging our students outside of the academic hours, what's growing, what isn't, how does it fit the portfolio, and what's the relative costs of providing that versus the revenues. And are we putting our dollars in the right places? This sounds like this has probably got more due diligence behind it than 80% of the other activities have, because they haven't been touched upon in a while.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest fear in the minds of students that this isn't going to work. It's we usually get club sports and we see how it works. This is very different. The motion hasn't changed, so it's a 3-year commitment based on the funding formula that you gave us. And then what we're saying is every sport is reviewed. When swimming numbers were really low, the students rallied and got the student numbers to make a swim team. So it's as comfortable as any other sport is. When it starts to get down, you can't get a team. We start to say, what do we do about it? And that's when the parents show up.
And just a point of clarification, some of our programs do have numbers, bottom floors in the handbook.
Oh, do they? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So
Thank
it's, it's,
All right.
you know, a range.
Can I just, oh, sorry.
So-
Yeah.
Can I just make one quick comment, which is what you just said, Michael, about doing an assessment, about the revenues covering the expenses. As Shelley said, we charge fees because we can, and they go into the general fund. It's not meant to be an offset to the actual cost of athletics. So I just think.
But if
that's
we're
just-
having to make choices between X, Y, and Z, and one of them costs 3 times as much on a net basis.
Oh, there's a
Oh, do you want to
mystery
say
here,
that?
Mr.
Do you want to
Lady.
say that? This is how we
But
met. Okay, so I'm gonna table that
Yes.
discussion for this evening.
I can.
I'm sensing we can come to a
Yes.
vote,
Yes.
so barring any other hand waving in the background, I'm just gonna ignore you. Aim, can you read back the motion, please, so we're clear? Do you want to finish your lozenge?
Yeah. Ms. Williamson made a motion to approve the proposal for indoor track and field as presented. Season 1 will be 100% fundraised by the team, Season 2 will be 50% fundraised by the team, and Season 3 will be 100% funded by the school budget.
All those in favor? Aye. It votes unanimously.
They'll be running in college.
Excuse me? Yes, she voted. You can't vote, but I wasn't going to tell you.
I support indoor track. I think it should be noted in the minutes.
It should be noted in the minutes.
Yeah, I love the fact.
All right, thank you. And I want you to know you got a lot of time on our subcommittee meeting, so this really, we were really giving you attention, even though it looks like you have nothing better to do.
Thank you.
Awesome job on your part.
Thank you.
All right,
Congratulations.
thank you, Heath. The
Over, Mr. Smith, you have a new sport.
Yeah,
That's great. My current school has it, and it's been very successful.
Really good.
You better get those running sneakers on.
All right, will do, will do.
Thank you.
You can leave the runs.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
We are overnight football training camp at 8:05. All right. We saw in our packets, is Heath presenting it?
Yeah?
He's football camp.
So as presented in the packet, we're considering a motion for the football camp. And I'll have to say, some school committees don't go into detail. They say, as noted in your packet, any questions? So I'm going to suggest that we try that.
I like that.
All right. So may I have a motion, please, to approve the overnight football training camp proposal as provided in our packets?
So,
And a second?
second.
Discussion.
Go
All those
Raiders.
in favor?
Go Raiders.
Unanimous. Thank you. Wow.
Nice job, Heath.
Yeah.
Great job on that.
I think Ellen should make all the motions tonight.
It's all right. It's all right.
Middle school report. Mr. Kellett.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to remind Ms. Lonigan that all great physics Olympiad teams have a great feeder program. I only have a few more chances at this. I have to take advantage. We had 26 participants at the regional fair, and over half of them are moving on to the state fair at Worcester in early June. So we're very thrilled for them. Last weekend, we had our Pink Panther production and Epic Fail productions, which were just...
What was the second one?
Epic Fail. That was now I have to give Ms. Lonigan kudos because one of her students was the director of this program, Alice Mackay, who was the student director for our students who presented at the festival that we hosted last Sunday, where the program won a gold medal. And then I was so impressed with it. I was sitting with Mr. Bliss. We decided to ask them if they would present it to all of our students during help sessions this week, and they did. They did 2 performances this week for the 6th grade, and then one for the 7th and 8th. We agreed that it was a good message delivered by their peers. So we were able to do that. The other piece of good news we have is one of our faculty members, English teacher Laura Mullen, was one of over 2,000 applicants to present. She submitted an application to present at the National Council Teachers of English at their conference in November that will be in Boston. And she was selected, so she will be presenting in November. We are very proud of that and wish her the best.
Do you know what she's presenting on?
I do. It's at their annual convention, and it's called More Than Where and When, Teaching Students About Setting. Briefly, it is about teaching students about the social, psychological dimensions of setting in literature. So she will be doing that in November. The other two pieces of rather disappointing news, yet we're thrilled for them. We have two staff members one who has resigned for family considerations. She's moving out of state because of her impending marriage. That's Kristen Peterson, one of our special education liaisons, and she will be sorely missed. She adds a lot to the school community, both as a team leader and as a liaison for a number of our students. And the other individual is Deborah Howard, who is one of our guidance counselors. And she and I started at Dover-Sherborn 18 years ago. And I had a little absence in the middle, but she has been here for the past 18 years and has provided a wealth of knowledge and counseling for our students. And in the last 4 months, she has provided a wealth of knowledge and counseling for a certain administrator. And her institutional knowledge will be sorely missed, but we wish her the best in her future endeavors. And I think, unless you have any questions, that's...
Any questions for Mr. Callett? Thank you.
No, can I just say though that these citizen action groups, the wide variety of them was just so impressive, and it was nice that you shared that with us, so thank you. But really impressive, the variety and all that.
I had the opportunity to visit the CDC with a group of students, and having had two children, my own children, go through the CDC when it was over here, was just phenomenal to be able to go down there and see that the staff there is still the same. There was one person who was new, but her child was in the group with my daughter, so it was nice to go back there and see that, but to also see our 8th grade students and how they interacted with the kids was just incredible. And that's the feedback we got from all of the groups that went off campus, and for the ones that were on campus and did work. It's quite an impressive program that Captain Malloy and Donna Bettigan have put together and sustained.
All right, thank you very much. Next, outstanding teachers with the superintendent's update.
Just wanted to give you an update on slipping down to 7B on the assistant superintendent's position. He has made a reference. They've referred 3 candidates to me. I'm in the process of doing reference checks. They will be with us on Friday. And Mr. Cruz has done a fine job of running the search committee and also organizing the site visit. He and I will both be meeting with each one of the 3 candidates Friday afternoon, and I hope we have all the references that have been returned, that perhaps we can come to some closure at that point. So I thank you really for the work that you've done on that, and again, I'm very excited because I've got some very impressive references that are coming back on some working with.
And at one point in our discussion, that there was potential to see the environments that the candidates were performing their current duties in. Did that occur, or was that decided it was not necessary?
No, for this we actually have the candidates coming to Dover-Sherborn. The committee, much like one of the other committees, discussed that, whether we would do a site visit to the candidates' schools or whether we would invite them to Dover-Sherborn. And it felt that we would glean more from having the candidates come here and really be able to work. And we're, as per the schedule that was sent out today, we have the candidates moving through all 4 schools, 3 campuses all day on Friday. It's quite a little maneuver. So they'll meet with each faculty, they'll have time with Valerie, they'll have time with me, they'll have time with the school committee. Quite a little show.
You're just going to see who's standing at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it.
We have them assigned, each person has a concierge assigned to them, so somebody who's moving them between the campuses.
Stamina
And then they get the
competition.
parents at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you need RSVP about who's able to come from the school committees, or are you thinking of the 16 that you'll have enough of a?
I've already heard from a lot of folks on the Sherborn School Committee, so they have a couple of folks. but
Okay,
that's
so
what it
I'm
is.
coming, just.
Great.
Me too. I saw one.
All right.
Oh, well, wasn't an invitation to all of us?
Wasn't it an invitation?
Oh.
Always?
Oh, you didn't get yours? Oh, sorry.
No, I just thought, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5 on
Yeah.
my update, on the MOU with Valerie and Mr. Compensatory, Ms. Lonigan, I want to thank you and your committee, and there is a packet that's attached to Ms. Lonigan's report. I would really appreciate if school committee would review that and make any suggestions that you may want or that you think we could add, and then I'd like to go ahead and forward that to our negotiating team once they're established. Number 6, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the school committee and in remembering my family in the way in which you did. Creativity was unbelievable, and as I said, it's very seldom that I find myself not knowing about surprises that are being planned or to be speechless, but I very much appreciate it. Got home, got the old telephone out, the new telephone, took pictures and sent it down to Atlanta saying, you just won't believe what the school committee's done now. So it was received just as excitedly as it was by me, by my brothers. Thank you. That completes my report.
Thank you.
Excuse me, that there's a guidance department position update.
That's Steve.
That's Steve.
Okay.
Very
Are we
good.
okay with the assistant superintendent? We're good?
We're good.
Any questions? The Director of Guidance Search Committee, and we thank Laura Mock is serving from the region on that particular committee. It's a committee of 17 people. We actually have 4 student representatives on the committee. Mr. Kellett is serving as well as an administrator. And it's a phenomenal group and an interesting search. We, much like the other searches we've conducted, we composed a timeline, obviously went out to search. We've had really a wide range of applicants. For this particular search, we have only 17 applicants for the position. However, it is interesting, we got together for our second meeting as a committee a few days ago, and we have identified a number of candidates to interview. So those interviews will take place next Monday and Tuesday afternoons. We're still finalizing the arrangements on those particular interviews. And as part of that process, much like we've done with every search, we've looked at the job description, we've looked at the job posting, we've crafted, very carefully, we've crafted interview questions. And I will tell you, it was an interesting group of about 34, 35 questions received by committee members. And we grouped them by staff relations, leadership, management style, all kinds of questions, some related to transition, some related to middle school, college placement, non-traditional college placement, or post-secondary planning. So the committee and Lauren's on it did a phenomenal job with the questions. So we're looking forward to the interviews next week.
And our leader did a phenomenal job taking all of the questions and turning them into questions that we could actually ask.
Thank you, Lauren.
Any interesting perspective from the students who are participating on this committee?
Very, in particular through the questions that I'm not really looking to share because they're embargoed, but really interesting. And as we've done with the other committees, we make sure every voice is heard on the committee, so at every meeting, everyone has something to say. That's just one of our meeting norms, so we make sure that everyone's called upon to speak. So, and Tamara, who was here tonight, is one of our student reps. She's since left, but it's great, absolutely phenomenal. We put the word out to the entire student body and had a number of students, we had sort of put on a wait list who wanted to serve. So, good turnout.
And
Thank
they've
you.
been vocal.
What's that?
They've been participating, yeah, which is wonderful.
Yeah, really great. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to effective and efficient districts. Ms. Tague, our FY13 budget update.
Enclosed in the packet is my financial report. If you have any questions.
Wow, love it.
She's been rehearsing that all day long.
Love it.
Well, it's efficient and effective. I just want to point out, we're starting to do our year-end projections, come up slightly. We're looking at potentially a $400,000 operating surplus, which would bring the projected E&D up to about 3.08%. Last time I reported it was a little under 3, I believe 2.9. And again, as each day passes, I get tighter and tighter numbers. We are going to look at 2 local school committees for asking them to participate in the HR.
Yes, I saw that.
So
That's
that'll be
great.
done this
Thank
May.
you. Thank you.
Facilities, I do need you to vote on the award of the HVAC contract as described in my motion, subject to town meeting, not of the Sherborn election. And then on the 15th, I will contact, well, I have already contacted Ken Beck, and then we'll schedule a meeting if everything goes accordingly to set up the contract and the timetable. The sooner the better, because there's a real tight window there.
Right.
Pertaining to the FY14 budget update, there's only about a $33,000 delta between our level funding this year and the House Ways and Means budget versus the governor's budget. So I'm pretty glad we went with level funding. The Senate Ways and Means is scheduled to come out at the end of May. From what I'm hearing, it probably won't get resolved until conference committee, because this seems to be a year without too much fluctuation. And that's it, really.
Okay, so FY13, the $400,000, is that the $220,000 in salary and then $200,000 in a variety of utilities, transportation, property insurance? So that's the $400,000 estimate.
And does that also include the positive revenue?
Yes.
Clearance?
The E&D percentage includes the positive revenue.
And
In
what?
effect, the drawdown on fund balance, Michael, will be less.
Yeah. It is the, what's in miscellaneous revenue that we did so well with?
$50,000 because of the wastewater treatment facility settlement, and $23,000. West Suburban gets Medicare Part D, and annually they can make a decision to release that to the various communities that participate. It's happened for 2 years. Because they've used a little bit more of fund balance than they wanted to, I don't know if it will happen again in FY14.
Okay. I was really excited when you said payroll conversion. We have seamlessly completed processing
I'll
two
tell you,
payrolls.
it's so nice. I had this one done right after the payroll was done and the warrant was processed before the end of the month. Because we only have 2 payrolls a month. I love it.
Good. I mean, I know it's been a very long winter for you. It was a big, aggressive change for the office in terms of manpower getting up to speed, but reading that, I just thought how happy you must be.
And to know where we're at, like, instantaneously is what, know who's being charged, what account number, it's great.
Good. Very good.
And the
And I'm
staff is
starting to
really
play with the
valuable.
salary projections in
Yeah.
anticipation of contracts.
Right.
Just in time for Steve.
Just in time for Steve. Were you saying anything, Valerie, or just that point?
I just think
Great.
also that the staff,
Yeah.
who really were not as supportive of this when we first started this adventure, and although Chris came down and was very enthusiastic, her staff would also, on break, stop by and let me know how concerned they were about the conversion. And I always think that it's a very good experience with your trainer, and also when they have the practical application and they turn around and come back and say, we really like this, this is really great. So thank you, Superintendent.
Good, no, it's very worthwhile.
that we are very more efficient because of that.
Okay, and so I'm still stuck on FY 13 issues. The high school boiler has had section cracks, and you're saying this is the third boiler failure in the past 2 years for this same boiler?
No, the boilers that were installed when the building was, there seems to be an apparent problem with burning with these particular model of boilers.
So how many boilers do we have?
Oh, we have like 10.
Oh, okay, all right.
We have backups for the boilers, so.
Okay.
That was just informational purposes.
All right. Any questions about FY 13 or FY 14? Or shall we make a motion for the HVAC? I'm sort of stuck between, I didn't print the agenda, and I'm sort of stuck between going all the way up to the PDF, or maybe we can share. So, so it is here, okay. I would love to entertain a motion to award an HVAC contract. Richard.
I move. Who am I awarding the contract?
Automatic.
Oh, thank you, there it is.
You can read it, yep.
Yeah. I move that we award a contract for the middle school HVAC to the Automatic Temperature Control Company of Cranston, Rhode Island, in the amount of $852,395, subject to town meeting preparation, which has already happened, and in the case of Sherborn, subject to an affirmative vote of a debt exclusion at the upcoming election.
That last piece is critical. All right, may we have a second?
Second.
Yay! That was my discussion.
Sorry, Shelley. Sorry, I misunderstood that.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, we can move right from there to Sherborn Town Meeting. We're not there yet, so I want you to make sure that people know to show up at the ballot. So go ahead with the update on the
Sherborn Town Meeting.
Sherborn Town Meeting, Richard.
Sherborn Town Meeting was on Saturday from 10 until about 2:30. An interesting experiment. It would be interesting to see. Who would like to repeat it? The budget passed without comment. The air conditioning article, I presented on it, and then Peter Caruso said some nice things about it. He's the Sherborn Selectman. And then it passed without any other comment. And then Michael made a presentation on our miscellaneous capital. And I don't believe there's any comment on that either.
I wasn't close enough to the mark.
Yeah. Official
I'm
comment.
sorry, I can't hear you. Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah. Other than that passed without comment. And it was really remarkable, frankly. I think we were all expecting more pushback than we got, which was nice. But obviously, we still need to prevail at the ballot, which is coming
On May 14th.
May 14th.
For the town of Sherborn. So if, I think we should put some effort into calling anybody we know who has a roster list and suggest that they show up and vote. I never say how they need to vote, but just if we can get bodies to show up and vote. This is the last thing we have to do to get this across the finish line. So I'm certainly going to make an effort. I hope that we can all consider doing that as committee members.
If I may, we've been listening to our finance committees talk to us about the shifting and the number of people that are coming out for town meetings that are leaning more towards the senior citizens and less of our parents that are showing up for a town meeting. I think that for both towns, it was very apparent to me that feedback that we've been getting from our finance committee members has indeed been true. I very much appreciate the senior members of both communities supporting, but I think that Shelley's point of making sure that we get the word out to our parents, that this is a very important issue. It's come on a long journey, but they really need to get out and be able to vote on that particular election. I would really hate to see going this full distance and then not having the support on that May 14th vote. So I do think that the outreach is called for and it's important.
And back when we were doing the buildings, it was, you would pick up a phone number and call and pick up a phone number. So I really think we should brainstorm outside of this just to see what, how we can make that happen. Some kind of tree. So we're going to lead right from there into the Dover Town meeting update, which was last night. It was successful, as we know, for the air conditioning. It was successful for the capital items that we need. There were, we had the FAQs. There was a lot going on in Dover at this particular town meeting, so I don't think they did get read. They were read, even while they were sitting in town meeting. They had a lot of white papers thrown at them. So a lot of the, so I read the audience incorrectly in that they were so focused on some issues that I thought they didn't want a lot of time from us. So I didn't put a lot of detail into it. In hindsight, there were so many questions that I probably could have shortened everything by spending more time initially. There were questions, have you looked at common sense solutions? So there were a lot of really introductory questions of people who obviously, weren't apprised of the situation. But then in the end, with great surprise, it went unanimously without a single nay. So that was fabulous. The capital items was interesting because we got a very fair question from someone who had served on a warrant years ago, and he had said, way back then we wanted the items that could be carried in the operating budget to be carried. So when they looked at some of our laundry list of the 122,000, some of those looked like they should be operating items. So I responded that we are aware of that and how we've been putting 35,000 in each year, but it really isn't significant enough now that we're hitting some end of life and other issues. So so that question was around how to avoid interest. So I think we are really going to have to revisit the long-range capital needs plan with that consideration in mind. Again, we have one town who doesn't want to pay interest when we don't have to. So we're going to have to be very careful about that. So that's really the update. I want to thank Brooks Brooks Gernert is in the audience. I want to thank Brooks and Kathy and who's not here, and the Sherborn liaisons aren't here, but there's so much support I felt from our finance committees through these many months, because every warrant committee member was certainly up to speed on the air conditioning, and so it felt great going in with that support. There was no minority report read at either town meeting, and it's a lot of time, as you can see. So I just want to thank you for your support in walking through the discussions that we have here with the people on the town side.
It was a very lively meeting last night, and I commend you, Valerie. You handled the questions superbly, crisply, accurately. The audience was satisfied, hence it passed with ease. So kudos to you.
So we felt like the ragtag fleet up there, jumping up to the mic.
I suspect you probably would have gotten more questions in Sherborn if Peter
Crusoe had
not
piece.
said his piece. I think that went a long way.
I agree.
The folks that kind of would have expected if somebody was to squawk, Peter may have been in the short list of asking challenging questions. But he did that 3 months ago or 2 months ago. I remember watching
But I think it was really helpful that he made the comments in the newspaper and that somebody brought that to my attention, so I could call Richard and
get
say,
answers.
Richard.
In fact, Peter and I had some back and forth over the last week, which actually
Considerable. I think, Richard, you did a good job of getting the information and being able to respond.
I learned all kinds of things in that last week.
Yes, you did.
But I just made a note to send an email to Peter Crusoe, because I think he really helped our effort when it was needed. The timing was perfect, and I plan to send him a thank you. So we just have to get across the finish line, but it's looking good. It's looking good. Moving on to the regional school committee goal setting. So this is where I need help from the committee, because I've seen a number of emails about goal setting. I haven't done anything. Sorry, Steve.
No, that's okay.
So, what are we supposed to be doing here, committee members?
You know, one of the things that I did do, I'm gonna jump in here for Steve too, because we in our office have been absolutely
Swamped.
swamped. But with the goals, I sent out an email to the chairs saying this was our understanding, to take the postage, to put those in the type list, to get them out to you, so that there could be further consideration, and that perhaps a conversation in June might be a little more appropriate. You'll have the transition taking place, and it really gives Stephen a little time to give a little more thought to where he wants to go, because quite frankly, since we had the last meeting, we have to fight to have time in order to catch up with each other. It's been high demand on Stephen's time frame, and I think everybody in the office has been doing everything they can. So,
Well, two things. Those stickies, which while they were interesting exercise, I wasn't taking them as goals, because that wasn't the question that was asked.
well, were you just faking it?
No, I
The
thought it
question
was
that
an
was asked
exercise.
was, what is your
Brainstorming
ideal,
exercise.
Right.
outcome from your school, I think, and that's very nice, and
But that's not where you would be going.
strategic planning, but that's not our year-to-year goal setting. So one thing is, while I would love to read what was on those, it doesn't take the place of what I think our charge is. And the second thing is that, while I would love to procrastinate as much as anybody, I think this meeting is in fact the time for us to put our chits in, because the next step is to try to develop a 3 committee-wide comprehensive set of goals that Stephen can actually work with. And if we wait till June, the train will have left the station.
Okay, but are you doing that, or is he doing
Well,
that?
So
Because-
I would like Mr. Bliss to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing.
So first and
That will
foremost,
happen.
we took all of the sticky notes, which which I appreciate, we compiled them, they were typed up and sent out. They're not in the form of goals per se. I mean, they're clearly thoughts, sort of random thoughts. I did not to say that tongue in cheek, but. And then my thought on that was that we would hear some discussion tonight a bit, so that I'd be able to then get to work. Over the next 2 weeks, I intend to spend some real time, off campus, literally doing some real reflection on the past 4 years, the next several years, and goal setting, without the constant, email interruptions and whatnot. That time will begin actually next week, taking some time to really do that. So it's important for me to hear from the committee so that I can kind of take all that in. My thinking then was that at each school committee's June meeting, there'd even be, there'd be a continuation of that with something of a deliverable, so that when we came to that at the end of June,
Oh, that's right.
we had the joint meeting. That's when we would have the product delivered. That's my reading.
Yeah, so when we left the joint meeting, we were going to give him some input, but Steve was going to be preparing his goals, and we respond to his goals, so that there's one set for the 3 school committees. So to jumpstart, so I'm turning to my committee, because if I'm a single voice, it doesn't matter. For me, with a new superintendent coming in, I'm going to hear his goals around academics, but for me as a school committee member, I would love to hear strong goals around the team leadership building that I think is necessary, because we have so many new key leaders in the building, and Steve is new as superintendent. So that would be one of my focuses. And the second is Michael has brought to light a lot of the financial possibilities that we could explore, and Steve Bliss and I were trying to find a time when we could do that workshop I keep talking about, and I don't want it to be squished or compromised. I'd rather wait on it until there is some breathing space. So I would like to focus on I'm calling it a financial workshop at some time, and I don't know if who's around in the summer or who's not around, but a time where we could sit down as a committee and figure out what we want to do and what angles of the budget we want to look at, and invite the liaisons in if they're available. So that would be my suggestions for him to consider. And I don't know how the committee responds.
I'm sorry, Shelley, may I just jump in for a moment? Just bringing your attention back to, we have professional practice goals, we have student performance goals, and then we have the district goals. So that's what those are sort of the three buckets, going back to the training of April 29th. So we're sort of at the, just to kind of reframe it a little bit, just to bring it
So I
back
would
to
put the
that.
first one in performance, right? Your team leadership?
Yeah, and I had entry
I mean-
plans, sort of the admin cabinet building.
Cabinet building, right,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
all right. So, anybody want to jump in about their own thoughts or reaction to?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things that I think, well, there's one thing I think that has been neglected and increasingly festering among this committee, and that you heard tonight, about how to consistently approach extracurricular activities of all kinds. And there are multiple loose threads of policy there. Now, this is not obviously the giant picture stuff, but it's stuff that really drags us down, I think, every time these discussions come up. Because we don't have the big picture on what is, in fact, a significant aspect of what we do. And I think that figuring out how to develop that picture, how to address the policy questions that we don't yet have answers to me that feels important, and to let it go whatever year, I think would be a mistake. I think that. So that's one. The other one, you're going to just shake your head at, which is school start time. There is, in fact, interest on the elementary committees to look further into this. It really didn't get anywhere this year, and that was partly my fault, and partly just there's so much administrative turnover, it didn't have, there was just never a smart time to engage that discussion. I would like to engage that discussion, and I know it's an enormous pain now for the administrators to think about.
So my only response to that is, and it's being very candid, as I think we can make, that in the first year of having a whole new cabinet, I think it's important for them to know the place before they change the place a little bit. So, or consider doing that. So because it's idle functional or something. So that's my only, and it's not to say that it's on or off. I just want to kind of stew about that a little bit and think about how best.
I completely understand, and I would hate to put it off another year.
Right.
Well, see, and that would be one that I would respond to, saying, as a fellow school committee member, that would not be a high priority item. I also just want to throw out, we do have the contract negotiations, so new superintendent, new cabinet. Oh, did I forget to mention contract negotiations? All right.
When we figure out the time to talk through all the financial things, maybe what we do is think about when do we actually have to have had the conversations by and work backwards from there, because May is going to come and go, and we already know how crazy it is. A few of the questions that were raised in town meeting last night alluded to questions that we know are coming, especially when we get up next year to talk about how that capital plan really does look over the next 3 to 5 years, and the issue of what should be in the operating budget versus not. And so I think that if we know those conversations are coming, the sooner that we start our conversations to know how to answer those questions that we know are coming, the better off we are.
Right.
And then my fear is that once we get into the weeds of budget season, if we haven't vetted through these bigger picture ideas, we'll have just lost a whole nother year.
Yes, it happens, right?
For good, for obviously, for very logical reasons, but.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? I know this is for you, but besides the long-term capital, did you have other ones in mind that you think of? Those questions?
No, there was an allusion to cost per pupil and return and just in general percentage of the budget towards education. So I think
Is that pointing to the region or more at the elementary, given that the
I think it was
enrollment
just
declines
a
are-
gross
I think
paint-
it's
paintbrush
education, but
in general.
Yeah. I got the sense, because maybe, which may or may not have been correct, but I kind of felt as though, because we were talking about the region's long-term capital.
Right.
That it was addressing what was on the table at the time. They really hadn't had the opportunity to go, well, they did, but they chose not to go into.
Nobody put a stuff on.
No, our budget was not held. The elementary was, the question was raised what the increase was, and it was special ed that was mandated by the
No, the
law.
question
So
came
it
up
was-
on the issue of the 122.
Right.
And the issue for the elementary was housed in special education. But definitely the questions about expenditures, the long-term capital, the air conditioning was significantly vetted. But then when we got into the other, I think it was really important to listen to the gentleman who had been on warrant that was concerned about the interest. And I think that when the selectmen also responded to a little bit of the history between the two towns, I think that was helpful to the audience to better understand some of what you're dealing with.
Right.
All right, moving to,
Michael, you know what, it would be really interesting, because they filmed that. And I think, for you and Dana both working on it, it might really be interesting for you to view that clip. Just to, not so much with our part. Yeah. No, but the questions that were being asked.
Dana was there.
There were some good questions that I thought were raised.
Yeah, they were good questions.
Actually, what I was starting to think about is I was already putting in place the presentation that we're going to do at Town Meeting 2014 to answer all of these questions.
Right.
So
Right.
all I'm trying to do is work backwards from that.
Right.
I just wanted to add that my sense, just having been at town meeting last year and the year before, was that there may be sort of a building unhappiness about the growing school budget that the older members of the town don't understand. So I think if we can do a better job, and you did, in explaining about the special ed at the elementary, but I do think that it's kind of like they feel like they keep getting hit with things. And they're trying to save, if they could save on interest, I think that's sort of the mindset. And so the more communicating we can do, the better.
Well, I think the other key point is to say that we're all citizens and none of us want to pay more taxes if we don't have to. So I think part of it is just.
Well, I think that's why we're so excited to
Exactly.
You have to keep
get
in
the
mind that
conversation.
at least some of those folks, if they're depending upon interest as a significant part of their income, and that is going away, I would be shocked to not hear more voices among people living on their investments and their savings to say it's really starting to pinch.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that they're in a recession, even if other folks have felt like they've come out of it.
Michael, I think with the exception of maybe one individual, I really felt as though the majority of the questions were helpful, respectful.
Oh, yeah.
And some ideas that, probably could have been jotted down for further reflection.
It's a pretty good ratio for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I've always found that regardless of age, there's so much support for the schools, even when it means a cost to themselves.
Did Chickering ask for
They have a lot of items. A lot
capital?
of capital items.
Right, but they're in free cash.
They're out of free cash,
Right.
but it's still whether
There was
But
not
see,
much.
that's
there's
their
a lot to be
department of the
approved.
school.
There was a lot to be approved. I think that was your
Yeah.
question, right? There was a
And-
lot of support for
okay.
schools last night.
No question.
But they may have been surprised that another new building like Chickering needed.
But they don't want it
No,
to
no,
end
They
Is
actually,
that well?
Michael, there was one comment where they were surprised that with the renovations and the building that was done on this campus, that some of the needs were now surfacing. And, some of the people have not forgotten the wastewater treatment problem, and if the design was such, and you've got copper, and, I think that they were, I felt as though they were trying to be, they're trying to understand the situation, which I think Lauren definitely, we've tried to go ahead and communicate. We have
We're doing better too. I think we are doing better, but I do think my sense was
Once
that
they understood, Shelley and I were sitting next to each other, and when that unanimous vote took place, we were like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that sense with the number of questions that were.
But I don't
Right.
think we can communicate less. I think we have to continue to communicate. I really, really do.
Okay, so let's just stay focused on the goals. Anybody else? Ellen's going off, but
I am going off, but I will just say that I think the process that was spelled out to us the other day is a slightly different take on this goal setting exercise. And, you know, I think it's dictated by the state. You know, Steve's got to have one performance, one student growth, and then a couple district goals. So, you know, I think all the things that people are saying are all legitimate, but, you know, I hope that Steve has the ability, the latitude from the committees collectively to be able to sort of define what he thinks he needs to do, and just get the support of the committees.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think
I got that out of the joint meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I sense that.
So this was just if there's anything the region needs to throw at him, so we're throwing.
No, I understand.
He doesn't have to catch though.
Is that right?
So, I think one of the good things in the state packet is this, what they're terming SMART goals, which I think defining a couple strategic, measurable objectives. There'll be a lot of activities that will follow under that, some of which you're going to be personally, a lot of it you're going to be hopefully delegating off to a variety of staff. That to me is more important than coming back with specific things that need to get done next year.
Is actually having measurables.
Objectives of we want to achieve X or Y in the areas of academic excellence, some of the financial issues that have been alluded to. In past times, we've had areas around diversity, technology to me, which is only a vehicle to get to academic excellence. It's not a technology for its own sake, for the most part. And I forget what the fifth area was in the 2011-2012 report. No, I guess it's teaching and the teacher professional development. But again, to me, that's the rocket fuel underneath your academic excellence objectives. It's only going to be through those teachers and how well enabled and supported and evaluated that they are that you'll achieve academic excellence. So it can actually be a fairly simple structure to it. Everything underneath the surface is going to be busy and detailed and all that. But I don't think that's what the state is suggesting is what should be in your objectives. I think that's why they said limited to 3 to 5.
No, I mean in terms of the admin cabinet building, touching base on elements of the strategic plan, grabbing some of the points, as you know, Michael, from academic excellence, some of those innovation ideas and sort of trying to put some synergy around those ideas at each level will be important. We have a system-wide Understanding by Design curriculum campaign, K-12, that's underway that needs a lot of support. And there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm around it. We want to corral that and move that forward for sure. There's also a lot of energy around the 3 special ed directors and trying to develop some systems and some programs. We're in the middle of some very intense discussions now, today as a matter of fact, about efforts that will be, it's what's best for kids, but it's also an effort to bring some kids back to district, keep kids in district, reduce out of district costs, and do what's best for kids. And that's literally one of the programs we're working on, even as we speak. So pretty exciting stuff.
That's great.
And I hope to meld all that, because they touch on that touches on regular, special ed, best practice, curriculum development, efficient and effective, cost containment, special education. Just that one platform we're working on.
It's all excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so Lauren, do you want to say anything, or we're done with it? Okay, that sounds really good. I really do look forward to you getting the time to pull it together.
I'm excited about it. Great. Thank you.
Okay, we're narrowing down to the end. Regional school committee members to serve on the negotiation team. I have heard from Claire, who's she's running unopposed in Sherborn. So Claire Graham would be very much interested in serving on the negotiation team. Is anybody else? We usually
I'm available. I cleared my
you declare
family responsibilities and obligations.
Okay, so we typically, I don't know when we have someone from Sherborn and someone from Dover. I'd be very willing to do it from Dover. Is that okay with Lauren?
Yes.
I can't do that. So. No, I have a kid who's going to be looking at colleges in the fall. Saturdays, I
You got
can't.
2 steps backwards.
Okay. So we just need to figure out who we're going to have from Sherborn. How do you want to go about doing it? Do you have a strong interest? Claire said you had a strong interest. I'm just...
Is there any precedent on how people get selected?
Well, we typically go for someone who has history as one entity. So we've lost Ellen. I don't have... Claire has history as on the negotiation team. I do not. So in that respect, there'd be a huge few to have Claire on it. But I'm also looking at Michael to see how
You know, not knowing what I'm committing to, it's hard to exactly express. I mean, I think this is a fundamental component that's going to judge a lot of things for the next several years. So that's why I see it's a strategic use of time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you allowed to talk to them offline and figure it out? I feel kind of strange hashing it out, when Claire's not here. I mean, I'm comfortable with you I don't know exactly how open meeting works with you talking to the two of them directly, but I don't have anything to add, so I don't know, maybe Ellen does since she's been through it, or Richard.
It would be perfectly appropriate for the committee to tell the chair that it's the committee's wish for the chair to appoint. It doesn't have to happen
That
this
would be
week.
my wish.
But does she have to do it right now, or can she do this? She can still
Okay,
gather
so
more
I'll
information.
call you and talk to you. I'll call Claire and talk to Claire. All right. So there's no strong feeling from the committee about Michael's financial background or Claire's
Ellen might have
history
more
or
relevant develop.
Well, I'll just say that I do think it's helpful to have somebody who's had some experience negotiating before with this, in this setting.
the climate.
And there isn't anybody on the Sherborn School Committee, there isn't anybody on the Dover School Committee. So, we could potentially have 6 members who have never been part of the process and
The
negotiated.
superintendent has to go through that process. I don't think it's
So, I personally think it's
So
helpful to have somebody who has had previous experience with the process.
So how in-depth can the school committee, so I want to respect the collaborative nature. So in the past, we have given the team any issues that we would like, and then we don't hear anything. So if we want to use Michael in a really in-depth way up front, is that fair, in good faith with the effort?
I would say that some could argue that's sort of bringing in an outside expert who's not going to be part of the negotiating team. If you're suggesting that he...
So I'm saying, for instance, in the summer before it starts, Michael suggested a lot, and I feel like I'm talking to you and you're not in the room. So Michael, so Michael, you've come up with all kinds of things that you'd like to look at, and you've got models, and we never have time. So if Claire... So that's what I'm trying to figure out. How can Claire and I, if it were Claire and I, because we want her history and because I'm from Dover, if we were going to maximize our effectiveness, it would behoove us to understand some of the models, I would think. And is that it? So that could be done in June before there's any team, just to put it in our brain. So I just don't know, with you
Yes,
does that seem like it's...
I think that's a fair... In the as you're doing research, you can talk to different people. I mean, you're going to be talking to building administrators and things like that. So if Michael has, or if anybody has information or that they want to bring to the team, I think that's a fair use of somebody's knowledge. But once you sort of start the process, and this is not just the negotiating process, but sort of the,
From the
you've
moment
got,
you meet and greet.
well, I think once you start the preparation, you really want to keep it dedicated to the people who are on the team.
Right.
However, as I've said in the past, and this is just the sort of school committee side of it, will bring people in. For instance, you're going over the contract, right? So perhaps you might bring in the school attorney at some point just to say, is there anything here that you think we should be, addressing? And that's, you bring in the school administrators and say, is there anything here that, you would like us to bring to the table? So, you're doing that with the school committee anyway, and you're asking, is there anything here you'd like to bring to the table? So there's an opportunity for people to.
I think we actually have maybe 4 or 5 different people during that preliminary time, before the negotiations actually formally started. I think once it started.
But they were sort of guests. We never, they
Right.
Right.
So they
So
never
that's
became adjunct members of that particular committee. They were strictly at the invitation of the committee for specific areas that they needed more in-depth understanding before they went into negotiations.
Right.
So what is Steve and Chris's role at different stages of this process?
Well, so that technically the school committee is negotiating with the teachers, and the superintendent is an impartial party, and brings to the table knowledge and experience, and can help both the teachers and the school committee sort of understand, because typically things come up that because a situation has occurred somewhere along the line that challenges the contract, and so the superintendent can help everybody understand the whole the variables that are part of the situation, and also just has experience of being a superintendent and being able to sort of say, that doesn't make sense, that does make sense, but really their role is to be impartial. Many years ago, we did not hire a facilitator, and the superintendent basically facilitated the process. So the superintendent,
So it's not Steve's contract per se?
No, it's a school committee.
And Michael, like Valerie was there with the negotiations. Chris physically was not there. And we keep a running register of issues that come up, and the union knew this. I mean, we keep through my office the running list of situations that come up in the life of a contract. Some of them we have the list, many of the issues. I mean, it's quite a list. Some were tackled, some weren't, and it's a dynamic document that we maintain. Sometimes those issues are born of internal discussions at the central office. Sometimes they come up through things and we do have that list that's already begun, obviously, as things have come up.
And then the association, what is their process that they use to prepare for the negotiation, and who do they engage?
I don't know that they've really ever stepped up to the plate and said, let us share with you how we prepare.
Okay, so
They do have a session, though, correct me if I'm wrong, Judy, where the membership comes together to have an opportunity to bring issues to bear that they would like the negotiating team to bring forward, but that's it.
But that's not the actual, what Ellen was just describing was an investment by the school committee in putting in a long amount of time, because they wanted to make sure they were well educated on the contract, what are the issues. Health was a big issue last time. We spent a lot of time studying that so that everybody understood that.
And I have to say that, the teachers are living the contract, and so I think, it's an intimate, I assume they have sort of an intimate relationship with that. We, read it, but don't live it, and I think it's a different experience to try to be able to prepare yourself so you understand it when you're having conversations, and not just understand the words on paper, but try to understand what the implications are and that kind of stuff. So,
Well, the superintendent is your implementer.
right.
He's got the responsibility of implementing that contract and dealing with, there are a number of issues that are embedded in the contract that defer to the superintendent's judgment. So it's really helpful if he is a part of that and then understands where those situations have come from during negotiations.
And it's also important, I think, for the superintendent to understand the intent, because the words on the page don't necessarily speak really to the intent of in every situation. And I think it gives the superintendent the opportunity to really understand
Well,
the intent.
where my question, I guess, more specifically was, as they are formulating their thoughts and goals and objectives of this negotiation, do they have support of their state or their national associations and things of that nature?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it is interesting.
So that's the only part of it. I was trying to understand what process it needs to be put on it. So it's really a process within the school committee team that you're referring to, not a set of norms or process between the school committee and the association.
As far as preparation,
Yeah.
Everything you're doing always within good faith, right? So that definitely is a norm leading up to it. So, but as far as are there rules to prepare, I would not say that there are rules, except that you're going to be entering into a bargaining.
I think it will be really important for the negotiating team to have a quality time with you to walk them through, because there are a lot of things that really are not conducive to open conversation right now that I think you could really help in clarifying their understanding. Michael asked us some really good questions.
Okay, so for the purpose of this agenda item, I'll speak with both Michael and Claire this week, and we'll decide who will be the representative from, or I will decide who will be the representative from Sherborn. When do you become chair?
After you
In my head, I'm going, so does it have to wait to be done now, or can it be done at the June meeting? Salary and extra compensatory MOU, as was stated by Valerie, we've received the packet, we're going to read it, and now we will pass it along to the contract negotiation team.
Correct.
Who wants my thoughts on this? Should I come up with them?
I would love to have your thoughts.
Okay, good.
Okay. Agenda items for June. Agenda items. So that's when we.
So we'll do, no. So
June. Who needs to worry about June?
So we will hear Steve's goals, but before that we will have the changeover of the committee membership and reorganization. Thank you. Reorganization of the committee. Okay, and is that when we get the student handbook?
The student handbook and the school improvement plan.
Okay, any other ones that we know are?
If the athletic handbook has any changes, I think normally that would be the time too.
We'll also have to tech through. There's some changes that have been made to the governance.
Oh yeah, right. And Scott, you have the handbook at the same time, right? Okay, and then I was just looking to see if anything else was coming up. I can't think of anything that came up tonight.
What if everything we do later
Summer schedules. So Steve, I'm just going to ask the committee members separately what are summer plans, and I'll get back to you so you'll have a sense of organizing for yourself.
And Shelley, one of the other things I think we've done every year is I think we do a formal acceptance of all grants. We do a formal acceptance of DSEF and positive grants. Just have a record of and PTO, high school.
Well, PTO doesn't do like an annual thing like DSEF does.
Well,
We're moving towards that.
Okay. I mean, we've been accepting whatever they have whenever they give it, but DSEF, for instance,
right,
just...
but there was discussion in the last PTO meeting about doing that on a more regular plan. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, if there are any other agenda items, could you just direct them to either the superintendent's office or to me?
And would you also send in your summer schedules that you have them to benefit so we can put together a calendar for you?
And I'd like us to approve meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh, no, sorry.
Ellen? So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 6-0. All right, the other thing I want to note was we have in our packets the proposed meeting dates for 2013-14. It's highly likely there'll be one more joint committee meeting added in April, and I think they're looking at April 6th. So if you just want to pencil in at the bottom with a question mark under the joint meetings.
Shelley, if I may,
Yeah.
we may want to wait until the joint meeting in June.
Oh, there's no vote.
Yeah, we've already
Yeah,
had
this is just-
some comments that
Okay.
have come back from other school committees saying, wait a second, and this is what we put together each year for our school committees. But the two elementaries wanted to look at whether they wanted the same structure as they had previously or stick with the limited meetings, so.
Okay.
Does-
Yes?
Does the fact that it's the union agreement year influence the dates that we should be having joint meetings?
I don't think so.
Because it just comes back to us to vote up or down.
It probably needs to be joint meetings as opposed to union 50.
Is that what you meant?
Well,
Oh,
no,
that's
I mean,
that's the evaluation.
The time,
That's
part-
right time for decision making. Right?
Michael, I
Yeah.
think that's for the superintendent's evaluation.
No, I think his question is,
No.
do we have the right amount of meetings if we're gonna be having a budget year? I mean, a
Right.
contract year. Negotiations.
Since we hear nothing during the contract negotiations,
So the reality
it
is,
looks
it just
okay.
comes to us and
Right.
the reality is it's voted up or down.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
There's not a lot of deliberation.
and my guess is
necessary.
if all goes
You don't go
smoothly,
back.
it would be that February 25th date if all went smoothly. Okay, I'd like to,
But that means that maybe, like, the June meeting, there should be an executive session. Is that,
This
now that
one.
we're saying this, everybody's individual June meeting should have an executive session so that you can talk about
Issues.
contract
Yeah.
issues.
our upcoming June.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
Ah, right.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to note the enrollments as of May 1st, 2013. And, is that it?
Is next year's school schedule already posted?
Yes.
So we
On
can
the
see what
website.
the last day is?
We voted it.
No,
But yes.
for next year.
It's
I
same- yeah.
know we voted. I want to
It's the
refresh
same-
myself.
It's on,
With
it's on
what
the
I
website.
voted and why I
very
know-
nice
what I
there,
know, I
humor.
now know.
May
What you know,
may
you
I have
know.
a motion
Yes.
That's
to
profound.
adjourn?
Ellen!
Ellen? Second. Lauren, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Valerie on my right here.